I'm Sierra Tishgart, senior editor of Grub Street, New York Magazine's food blog. I'm here in CBS This Morning studio with Gavin Kaysen, the chef and owner of Spoon and Stable in Minneapolis.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Of course.
So you left New York to open a restaurant in your hometown.
Yeah.
What do you think are the advantages of owning a restaurant outside of the city?
You know, I mean, for me, my family's in Minneapolis, so that's one of the biggest advantages is that I get to spend more time with them and my kids get to spend more time with them, which is awesome. But just in terms of like the space, I mean, the space that I have was originally a horse stable built in 1906. That was an office building when I found it. And then when I found it, we decided to turn it into a restaurant. And the build out started on July 7th and we opened November 16th. That's an amazing turnaround. So, I mean, that's an advantage. It just all happened a lot faster that way. You know, but there's so many differences, and, you know, we're exploring all of the different farmers that we have now, and there's just so many of them.
We're seeing in New York so many talented chefs leaving, which makes me, of course, a little upset. But why do you think this is happening now more than ever, this shift away from the city?
You know, I almost think of it like, it's almost like an old European concept, right? I mean, when Michelin was created, it was created for the tourist who was driving along the windy street in the mountains or in the countryside, and they come across a beautiful restaurant. I kind of feel like we're adapting towards that again. I mean, New York City and San Francisco and Chicago and LA and all these cities that are so big, they create great food and they create great chefs and they create great cooks. But that shouldn't stop somebody like me to look at what I want to do next and say, well, I want to go back home to Minneapolis, and yeah, I know it's not an A market, but that doesn't change, that doesn't mean anything. I still believe if you cook really good food and you create beautiful hospitality and great service, people will find you. I mean, we cook for 280 people every night, whether it's Sunday night or Friday night. It doesn't change. So,
and you said people are lining up.
They line up. I mean, it's really, it's one of the most amazing things I've seen is like this line of people that show up to the restaurant. It's very humbling for me to look out at the restaurant on a Tuesday evening when it's full at 9 p.m. and think to myself, wow, this is, you know, this is Minnesota. This would change the way people think about what's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because it's 9 p.m. on a Tuesday and it's full.
Wow. And you're also very involved with the Bocuse store, and which, for those who don't know, is basically the culinary version of the Olympics.
Right.
What does being involved in the competition mean to you, and why is it something that you put so much time and energy into?
Well, I think that, you know, it's the Mentor organization, which is our organization which leads it. Thomas Keller, Danielle Blue, and Jerome Bocuse are our three founding members. And what's so exceptional about the competition and even that foundation is like Danielle's generation created empires for cooks like me to either make the same pâté en croûte at DB Bistro in Midtown Manhattan or in Singapore. And the ingredients don't change. So now what's the definition and what are we going to do as our generation for the next generation? And this Mentor organization is a part of that. It's like taking what they've taught, teaching it to us, and then us taking what we're learning and teaching it to the next generation. And that's really a part of Bocuse d'Or. I mean, you know, we look at training a candidate and not as an immediate thing. We don't say, okay, let's find a candidate and train him for the next 2 years. We say, let's find a young man or a young lady who's 19 years old or 20 years old and wants to cook for a living, and let's start to train them now. And let's start to get them into the system of how we think. And I just think it will help us all, you know, in terms of eating better and changing the way that the U.S. thinks about the food.
And building a community.
And building a community. I mean, it's sort of this like big fraternity, as lack of a better word, but it's this big fraternity of all of us sort of getting together and saying, how do we get better collectively? And that's what Mentor is all about, and that's what Bocuse d'Or is all about.
It's wonderful.
It's a great challenge, actually.
So what do we have here?
You know, the honey is incredible in Minnesota, and our pastry chef, Diane Yang, came up with this. It's sort of like a tres leche a little bit, but it's a layer of chiffon cake, and then it has a honey cream inside, and then we pour like a honey creme anglaise on top of it. It's with compressed strawberries, so now it's all coming towards the end of the summer season. So we get that. It has honey meringues, honeycomb.
Let's take a bite.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, that's really wonderful.
That's really good.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm Sierra Tishgart, senior editor of Grub Street, and I'm in CBS This Morning, Studio 57.